Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans. And today was the first day of preseason practice, and officially. And after the practice, the coach Tom Thibodeau came out, spoke with the media, and one of the focus of the conversation was about the shooting guard position and who could possibly start in that position. There's been a lot of talk that since we got Jalen Brunson on the team, there was concern about the defense with Jalen Brunson and Fournier in the backcourt, and so it seemed like there were rumors that that position was going to be up for grabs. However, it seems like the coach said something different today. Before we get too far into it, please like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys is that we're giving away free tickets. We're giving away a free ticket to a Knicks game, and you get to pick whatever game you want to watch at MSG. And in order to qualify for this raffle, all you have to do is uh, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and then you need to also email us your name at our Civil Analytics Gmail account. And if you do all those things, you qualify for the raffle. And and just and whoever wins. And there's actually 3 days left. I think the raffle ends September 30th. And whoever wins is going to get a free ticket to a Knicks game. And once they're hopefully the person whoever wins, I'll encourage them to see if I can get them to kind of give their feedback on the game and seats and everything like that. However, let's get right into this topic. And so, like I said earlier, it looks like Thibodeau came out and made it seem like Fournier was going to be um, would possibly be the starter, or like it was his position to lose. And so, because of that, I have been thinking about this position the whole summer about who would win that position. For the longest time, I felt that one of the issues, the reason why I wasn't convinced that Grimes would win out that position was just because of his production. His production is just a little low for someone who is getting basically the amount of minutes he was getting. Uh, I, I, it's a good thing that he doesn't force shots. I'm not looking for him to force shots or anything, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the production given the number of minutes that he received when he was playing. And he's one of the lowest, um, uh, one of the least productive players on a team given the amount of minutes that he gets. Obi Toppin is a lot more productive than he is, and Obi Toppin actually was getting less minutes uh, than Quentin Grimes were, and so Obi is a little older, obviously, but we're putting all that aside, and we're just comparing, stats right now, right? And so because of that, I wanted to take a look at all these three players, and so we can see why the coach still thinks Fournier might be the best option at the shooting guard position. Uh, One thing I want to get out of the way is regarding Cam Reddish. The reason why I have Cam Reddish on the list is because if Cam Reddish was to get significant minutes on the New York Knicks, or if he was to start on the New York Knicks, Cam Reddish would play the three, and they will slide RJ Barrett back to the two. I think that's obvious, and I think everyone knows that. I just wanted to make sure I made that clear in case somebody starts in the comments saying he's not a two guard. He's not a two guard. Um, so let's get right into it. And so one of the issues, like I said, with Grimes is his production. And given the number of minutes that he gets, he averaged basically 6 points per game, and he was one of the players that were getting the most minutes. Obviously, he was injured second half of the season quite a bit, so he didn't see a lot of action the second half of the season. But when he did play, the production just wasn't there, right? And so we can look at the production by looking at the PIE. Trust me, guys, the PIE matters. Every time I'm in a lot of these group chats or fan pages, everyone is talking about how the PIE number or the PERs, these things are nonsense. Trust me, these things matter. I've tested a lot of these stats, especially the PIE. I've tested it extensively, and these are very meaningful statistics. And so I'm not sure who developed these statistics, but obviously its works is meaningful, and it is a pretty good determinant of a player's contribution, their level of contribution to the team. And so, as you see here, we have three players that we're trying to compare: Cam Reddish, Quentin Grimes, and Evan Fournier. And so the PIE for Cam Reddish was 7.9, Grimes was 7, and Fournier was 7.4. Right? And so one reason, I've already stated the first reason why Grimes might be getting overlooked is the production. He seemed a little gun shy a lot of times last year. Um, actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure if he was gun shy or if they just weren't looking for him. But for whatever reason, he just did not put up enough shots last year when he was playing. And so he should have been able to put up more shots, at least try to average a little more points, but he just couldn't. And he was out of all the younger players, he was getting the most minutes. I'm sorry. And so kind of going off that as well, if you look at Evan Fournier, although his PIE is only slightly better than Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, he had a lot of games where he would just he would go off, right? Every 4 or 5 games, you can count on him to go off and drop maybe 30 for you, and that's if you get him the ball. A lot of times, a lot of times last year, I kind of, I mean, he struggled. It wasn't like they weren't trying to get him the ball. He just pretty much struggled last year. However, his PIE is only slightly better than Grimes, and so that makes it really interesting, right? And so the other person is Cam Reddish, and his PIE is 7.9 key. And Cam Reddish is the one who gets the least amount of minutes out of all of them. And so the other thing I wanted to look at the points per minute. And so if you look at Cam Reddish, his point per minute was basically 0.42. Uh, Grimes was the lowest at 0.35, and then Fournier was basically almost. So basically, for every minute he's on the court, he scores about half a point. So basically Fournier, basically when he's on the court, he's taking shots. He's going to try to fill it up, right? But Grimes not so much. And Cam Reddish, I think he's not shy about it either. He stays aggressive. Every time he's on the court, he's actually attacking the basket, and he's trying to do basically attack the basket, and he's being aggressive for his team, especially on the offensive end. The other thing I wanted to look at was the defense. Now these stats here are from NBA.com, right? And so I wanted to highlight this here. This is the defensive field goal stats for all these three players. Again, I got this from NBA.com, and then this is their field goal percentage. I also got it from NBA.com. And so the other thing I did was I looked at this differential, right? Basically, um, if this is what you held opponents to shooting, and this is what you shot, were you more efficient than your opponent when you were on the court? And so when you look at it, um, the problem is Grimes was the least efficient when he was on the court. Right? The defensive field goal, according to NBA.com, it's at 48.2. Now look, NBA.com, the way they tabulate these defensive stats, I just don't really trust it. In my opinion, I don't think it's really that good because when I went through the games where I went through uh, the video and went basically when I went possession by possession to look at the opposing team that basically shot the ball and scored, and also scored. I was looking at basically which Knicks players the points were being scored on, and so when I did that, it just wasn't really lining up to what was on NBA.com, and I'm not sure. I think a lot of it sometimes they split let's say defensive possessions, right? And I think that's what it is. Let's say Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel quickly doubles up on someone when they take a shot. So I think they split that they split it amongst both of them. So one person gets half the possession and the other person gets the other half of the possession. And so I think that's what they're doing. So from that point, it does look fair. The other thing too, I did notice. I think when someone let's say someone basically leaves your man, right? Julius Randle leaves his man, doesn't even bother trying to uh, defend his man, and his man basically goes to the basket and scores. That doesn't go against Julius Randle because, I guess because, yeah, he didn't put in an effort, but because he didn't put in the effort, he kind of gets rewarded for not putting in the effort. So the defensive stats for Julius Randle, it's better than it should be because there's a lot of times where he just didn't even play big defense and he would just let his man go. That doesn't count against Julius Randle. And so that's where I kind of have the issue with the defensive stats for NBA.com. However, this is what they have. And so they were saying Cam Reddish, he held opponents to 37% shooting. Quentin Grimes held opponents to 48% shooting. And Evan Fournier held opponents to 47% shooting. And so as you see here, this is the number of field goals that offensive players made against uh, Cam Reddish. Offensive players went 29 of 70 versus Cam Reddish for 37%. Quentin Grimes, they went 131 of 272 for 48. And Evan Fournier was 333 field goals made on 709 attempts, 47%. And so when you look at it, like I said, um, Quentin Grimes was the least efficient when he was on the court in terms of like versus his opponent, right? And so, and then the other thing wanted to look at the field goal made differential as well. So while Quentin Grimes was on the court, um, the person he was guarding made 40 more field goals than he did. 40 more field goals. I mean, that is a lot. And I think this is one of the reasons um, why, I think the team, like Thibodeau, a lot of the, analytics team, they're probably looking at all this information. And I think this is one of the things you're looking at. And that's why they're not sure whether or not Quentin Grimes is ready to start. If Quentin Grimes can be a lot more aggressive and put up some shots and still shoot around the 38% from three or 39% from three, then we got something, right? And because his effective field goal is pretty decent. I think it's slightly above league average or around league average. And so you have something with him. He just needs to be a lot more aggressive. And so that's one of the reasons why. So these are the reasons why I think the New York Knicks are just not sure, or at least the coach is not sure whether or not Quentin Grimes is ready to start. Now, in preseason and during these practices and also in the preseason games, now if Quentin Grimes comes out aggressive and he starts jacking up like 14 shots or 15 shots and things like that, and he's able to, let's say he shoots like 40, mid 40s, or 40, even, I think low to mid 40s. But if he's being aggressive and his 3 point percentage is still pretty good, and let's say the effective field goal is still above league average, I think then we might see the coach at that point make the switch. Um, it's possible. Or the other thing they could do is, even if Quentin Grimes show out in preseason, they're going to want to see, all right, uh, the bright lights are on in the regular season. Let's see how he does in the regular season, right? And so at that point, they won't start him yet. They still won't start him yet. What they'll do is like they'll still have Evan Fournier starting, and then maybe Cam Reddish will be. I'm sorry, Quentin Grimes would be the first person off the bench, and then they're basically. I think they'll test him out that way. So he can ball out in preseason. I still think possible Evan Fournier starts, and then they kind of fill it out to see and still give Quentin Grimes a lot of minutes, and then they'll see whether or not if they need to make the switch, right? So that's what I think that could happen. I think the other person everyone is like really discounting is Cam Reddish. In my opinion, from looking at it, in terms of production wise, he's in, according to the PIE, he's more productive than the other two. But you can't ignore, you can't ignore Evan Fournier's basically half a point. He scores basically, so every 2 minutes he's on the floor, Fournier scores 1 point for every 2 minutes he's on the floor. That's what this basically translates to, almost 1 point. And so that's higher for Fournier. That's higher than the rest of these two guys. But in terms of PIE, the PIE, which I got also from NBA.com, says Cam Reddish is the most productive. Now, the reason why I feel Cam Reddish is probably, in my opinion, is their best option. It's honestly sometimes you just gotta, maybe you just gotta play kind of ugly, right? And I mean defense. Sometimes you need to give yourself a chance. You can start off ugly. Yes, the spacing is not going to be there with Cam Reddish. However, if you got Cam Reddish out there and he's playing like starter minutes, and then you also have you also have R.J. Barrett at the two, Jalen Brunson at the one, Julius Randle at four, and Mitch at the five. You have five guys on the court that are capable of playing defense. They have the physical tools to play the defense, and it's just more about the coach making sure they're committed to it. And then in terms of the spacing, if RJ gets off to a good start and he's basically kind of shoots the way he did a couple of years ago, that might help a little bit with the floor spacing. But honestly, Fournier is the only threat to actually to shoot from deep consistently. That will force the defense to actually stretch the floor. But RJ Barrett, I think he can help a little bit with that if he has a good start to the season. However, I just feel like having Cam Reddish at the three, RJ at the two, if they want to basically make sure or guarantee they get off to a good start this season, I just think that's what they should do, in my opinion. And then Cam Reddish would have to really work on his spot up shooting. He's not terrible as a spot up shooter. I really wish I had his shooting percentage as a spot up shooter, but it's not. It didn't seem that bad. His 3 point percentage wasn't great. Uh, so that's the one thing with Cam Reddish. Just not he wasn't very good from three. So, but pretty much that's pretty much what we have, and with this here, I mean it's going to be a really interesting battle. Leon Rose said this was up for grabs, and honestly, I kind of think it is up for grabs. I do think the coach believes this is Fournier's job to lose, and then I do feel that like it's just a challenge to Quentin Grimes uh, to essentially, hey, you need to be a lot more productive on the floor, and you got to show you can score the ball. Like you can't have this. You can't have when you're on the floor the guy you're guarding took over the course of a season. Like that's like you're playing one on one with someone, right? And they made 40 more field goals than you. I mean, like, yeah, this is over the course of a season, but that's not good. You wanna win your matchups every time, and so winning your matchup that means when you're on the floor, you want to outscore the person that you're guarding on the floor, and you want to be more efficient than that person. But what we have here, when you're looking at Quentin Grimes, his opponent basically made 40 more field goals than he did, and then the opponent was also 7% more efficient than he was while he was on the floor. So that's just a big problem, and it's something they need to resolve. That's something he needs to resolve. He needs to prove and show he can be a lot better than that. Next thing I really wanted to talk about was the content day or the media day that they had yesterday. A lot of people felt like there was nothing there. It was a nothing burger, but I mean, there was a lot of stuff there. Sometimes you just kind of have to listen. I feel like there was a lot there. The first thing that I noticed, this might be me being too nitpicky, but it was the order of the interviews, right? Yesterday. I think Malcolm McNutt basically, it was RJ Barrett first, and then after RJ Barrett, it was Jalen Brunson, and then Julius Randle. After Julius Randle, it was Obi Toppin, and then I think Derrick Rose and quickly was next after Derrick Rose, I think. Or no, maybe it was Mitchell Robinson. No, it wasn't quickly. I think it was like Mitchell Robinson after D Rose, maybe. But I think the order matters, right? And the reason why I think the order matters is because I think it shows who their priorities are. I think it shows who they feel are the best players on their team or the most. I think these are the priority. They're prioritizing the players. These are the most important players on the team. That's just what I think that order is. It might just be me looking too much into it, but a lot of times subconsciously, a lot of people do these things. Like subconsciously, a lot of these front office types, they do this stuff like that. They don't. They may not mean to basically to do it this way to kind of put the most important player out first. Like in this situation with the Knicks, if you don't want to create controversy, maybe you start with Julius Randle, then R.J. Barrett, then Jalen Brunson. But no. It's like they went R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Obi Toppin. So that really means a lot. So to me, it shows that's who they feel are the best players on the team. Now, Obi Toppin being fourth, he's extremely talented, and you guys know I think he's got all-star potential. Uh, in terms of we still have to see a lot from him to see what he can do, especially like him being a creator, not just for himself but for his teammates. And we saw he's been able to do that last year. However, in terms of placing value on players, right? Uh, Looking at the analysis between last year between Quickly and Obi Toppin, like Obi Toppin had a higher production. He was just a lot more productive than Quickly was. He was one of the higher, more productive players on the team. Uh, with that said, though, Quickly second half of the season, especially the last 30 games, it's just like his ability to control the offense, his performance that last 30 games was really eye opening. And I think people are really discounting it. And I was actually really surprised after doing that research and seeing it. Look, I'm happy we got Jalen Brunson, but I was very surprised they went and got Jalen Brunson. This is really interesting that they're not, they just, they're just not even trying to give him a shot at it, right? They gave him like pretty much, and like they gave him that last 30 games, and that's pretty much well, it was 40 games really, but the last 30 games was the most impactful. Was like was really impressive to me. But I was just really surprised that I thought they were giving him a lot more of a shot coming into the season. So I was actually kind of surprised when they actually did go through and sign Jalen Brunson. But neither here or there. But talking about most like the only reason I'm talking about Quickly versus Obi in terms of like value as players and being the most important, it's just because like when you have a player that can control the offense, where essentially when you have a player where their performance is highly correlated with the team's margin of victory, so their performance is highly correlated with the team's performance, that means that player is the engine of your. That's an engine right there, right? And so you just can't lightly dismiss that. Um, all the great players in the NBA, all the really good players are great players in the NBA. If they don't have, if they don't have a lot of creators on their squad, that tends to happen, right? They tend to have their the correlation between their performance and the team's performance tend to be pretty high. You see it with you see it with Nikola Jokic. He's one player that you see that with. A couple of years ago, it was like Julius Randle. Actually, you see with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is like basically he last year he was the only creator on the Utah Jazz. You shut him down, there's like no one else. And so that obviously that's the problem with having players like that, where their performance is so highly correlated with the team's performance, because that means it's just not a well balanced team. There's not enough playmakers, and so you just got to shut that one player down, and the rest folds. But I guess the point I'm just trying to make is like it just really got me thinking like, how do you place value on these players? And it gets really confusing. And so now I'm actually really like, you know, Quickly is a guy you can run an offense through, and he was effective, especially the last 30 games. So versus Obi Toppin, who's clearly the production that's there. He's one of the most productive players on the team, given the amount of minutes that he gets, even more productive than IQ. Um, but but like I said, IQ can basically make plays for everyone, control the offense, and get everyone involved. So it was interesting, but it's just like kind of like I'm just trying to line that up, just kind of put that base analysis that I did side by side with like the order of the interviews that they did yesterday, because Obi was first, and then Mitch Robinson, and then IQ. But according to the analysis that I did, now I'm like just kind of like, yo, like when you have a player like IQ that can actually do that, that looks like he can be an engine. I mean, like that's extremely valuable. You don't, you know, that's very valuable. And now, whether or not he can actually, the team can win ball games with him being the engine. Actually, I should have looked at the last 30 games to see what our win percentage was, but I think that we were around 500 or maybe slightly above 500 the last 30 games. So that's not bad with IQ being operating as the engine of your offense. And he wasn't even getting starter minutes. He was playing like 27 minutes a game. So that was very interesting. But anyway, that order of the order of the interviews really did you know, to me, it speaks a lot to me, and it speaks to me who they feel are the most, uh, the best players on his ball club, right? So that's the one thing that I noticed. The other thing I did notice was basically with the interviews, these guys they are trying to be like they don't want to like say too much. They don't want to really start controversy or anything, but they let things leak, right? And so with RJ Barrett, it seems like he's really determined to prove people wrong this year. Even with the interview, he said they were going to they were going to shock the world this year. And so, and of course, he was basically the first person interviewed by Monica McNutt. And so, RJ Barrett, everything that they did yesterday implies to me that he is the focal point of this offense. Right? Jalen Brunson is going to be basically running the offense, but they're going to be running the offense, and the first person they're going to go to for the buckets is RJ Barrett. Knock on wood, fingers crossed. I really hope he did work on his finishing and is going to translate, and he's going to shoot 44 to 45% from the field. Because if he's number one and he's the primary scorer on this team, he needs to shoot 44% or above for us to even have a shot at sniffing at the playoffs. If he's at 41%, that's going to be a problem. The Knicks will not be doing, well, it would depend on like who else they get involved in the mix. But if RJ is shooting 41%, and the 41% is an improvement from last year, people need to remember it was actually he shot 40%, not 41, and 41 would be an improvement. But even if he shot 41 and a half or even 42% from the field, and he was averaging like 20 points per game, that's going to be a disaster for the Knicks. If he's shooting 42%, you don't want him averaging 20 points. You actually would prefer that he average maybe something more like 14, 15 points at that point until he becomes a lot more aggressive and a lot more effective and a lot more efficient and gets it together. I mean, that's just the truth, right? And so that's the one thing he kind of he put out there that they were going to shock the world, and I kind of believe them. And a lot of people think he wasn't really he gets it, and he wasn't offended by the fact that he was like one of the primary. He was basically the Knicks centerpiece in that trade with Donovan Mitchell. Look, these people are human. Yes, he understands it's a business. Like saying, yeah, he gets it, but he's still gonna be offended. So I didn't believe anything he said about that. I think he was definitely offended that the New York Knicks were gonna move him. But I think maybe he also understood because honestly, RJ, you shot 40% from the field. You're going into your fourth year. Last year was your third year, and you shot 40% from the field. That's not very good. Yes, we saw a lot of other improvements in the points per game, but those points per game came at that was to the detriment of the team. People don't like to say that, but RJ Barrett averaging 20 points last year, I actually don't think it was a good thing for the team that he averaged 20 points last year. It was actually a bad thing because of his efficiency was so low. Like I've always said before, if you're going to if you're going to be that inefficient from the floor, then the team needs to find other options, right? You need to basically get the ball to better finishers, and he needs to be able to basically find, his better finishers on the team. And so that's just what it is. With Julius Randle, he said a lot of interesting things. He talked about learning from last year and playing the right way. And so hopefully that means he's going to be playing defense this year and he's going to give up the ball. He did talk about it was good to have Jalen Brunson, who's going to be another ball handler. And so the thing I might be coming away with, given the order of the interview, along with what Julius was saying, Julius might end up being the third option on this team. There's going to be RG, like Jalen Brunson is bringing up the ball, running the offense, right? And setting everyone up. They're trying to set up RJ to be effective and to be successful on the offensive end. That's what Jalen Brunson is trying to do. And so it's all about RJ being able to get buckets for us, hopefully efficiently. And then I think the secondary, it looks like the secondary, next person Jalen will want to get involved is Julius Randle. And so it looks like that's, from the way he was speaking, It looks like maybe they talked to him, and maybe that's what's going to happen. But we'll have to see what happens to see if this is what the coach actually does, and if Julius Randle does take basically essentially not necessarily like a backseat, but kind of take a step back in terms of being the producer or being like carrying the load on the offensive end. So that would be interesting to see that. So that's the one thing with Julius. The other thing that I came away with, like D Rose. D Rose normally, I know he's spoken a few times about how he normally doesn't like to, when he's done with the game, he basically leaves. He spends time with his family. I mean, he does. I guess I'm sure he does his workouts and stuff to kind of keep him like flexible, limber, and so he can stay healthy for the next season. However, it seems like he was really he came out and said he was really offended by the fact that the team was hassling him about they felt like he needed to drop weight and that he was a little too heavy, and so he took that challenge personally, and he was able to drop the weight, and he's playing at his apparently he's going to be playing at his rookie the way he played at when he was a rookie, and hopefully I think that hopefully that's um, translates into healthier Derrick Rose and uh, and a very long season with him basically hopefully playing only 20 minutes a game. I don't want to see him play more than 20 minutes a game. But that's one thing I picked up with D Rose. He definitely looks like they kind of got on his nerves over the summer, and he took the challenge personally, and yeah, he came back ready to go. And Derrick Rose was also talking about accountability and people being held accountable, and people also being able to take criticism. If you're not playing the right way, and someone on the team said, "Hey, I don't think you should have done that." Don't take it personal. He talked about not taking those things personal and just to being able to take constructive criticism. And I have a feeling they were talking about Julius Randle from that. He was talking about Julius Randle in that situation. Maybe it wasn't just Randle. The only two people he could be talking about in that situation, it could be either Randle or RJ. Those two guys basically took all the shots. They shot 40% from the field, and both of them were averaging like 20 points. So basically, 40 points from both of them, and they both were shooting 40% from the field. That's just a recipe for disaster, and that's why last year was pretty much a disaster for the Knicks. But I think he's talking about one of those two players. There's no one else I can think he's talking about, and it's more likely if I was a betting man, if you asked me to bet, I would put my money and say he was talking about Julius Randle. And so that was pretty much the only those are pretty much the only thing that I came away with that I remember from the press conference, and that was pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about not just the press conference, but this whole two guard position. Who do you guys think starts? Right? Who do you think they're gonna start? You know, do you guys actually think Tibbs is gonna work on being more flexible? It doesn't seem like he's really that flexible. It seems like he's still the same old Tibbs. He's like, what is he, like a 60-year-old man? I mean, like probably older than that. This guy, he's not going to change. He's over 60. He is who he is, and he might try to try to change some things on the surface, but he's at the core. He is who he is, and he's just not a very flexible guy. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this position. You guys let me know who starts at the two guard position. Who would you like to see start? And I'll promise to make sure I respond to every comment. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night. Also, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much.